Greg Cosell was talking about Trey Lance. What did he say about Trey Lance, Mr. Greg Cosell?
Well, Greg. The one thing about Greg is, he just claims he has no bias and he lets the film speak for itself, and he just says that he's like he doesn't know if Trey, based on his film, can throw yet with anticipation, or if a lot of his throws are predetermined. And he says it's just a question that he has about Trey, that he hasn't seen enough film yet to see examples of him making those anticipatory throws where you're kind of, when you hear the saying, the quarterback threw the receiver open, where he led him into the open spot, into the void in the coverage or the zone. So that's kind of what he's saying, that he sees some things that makes him think that some of his throws are predetermined, and that he hasn't seen enough anticipation throws. So we'll see. I mean, he's not saying that he can't do it. He's just saying that he hasn't seen a lot of it.
It seems like with Trey, the sample size is so small and what he did was so up and down that you could kind of point to anything and be like, see this right here? I don't like it. Doesn't look good. I don't know about him. Or you could be like, these 3 throws over here, really like them. I'm enthusiastic. But either way, I think you're blowing something like 3 data points out of proportion, which is what makes him so frustrating and why the 49ers still can't necessarily put 100% of their eggs in his basket, considering they have this win now great team that's ready to go. Like, he has a shot to prove that he's the guy to lead them there, but they can't just waste multiple years waiting for him to be really good. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they should have thought of this, I don't know, before they drafted him, but maybe they didn't know the scope of how raw he is as a prospect. Maybe they didn't realize how much development he was going to need. Or maybe he doesn't need a lot of development and we just haven't seen a lot of it yet. And it's all going to kind of come out. But, so far we've just gotten such small glimpses that you can't really make any determinations.
Right. Well, I think it's fair to say that the Niners misjudged Trey Lance's athleticism. I think that's one of the things they've even come out and indicated, that they thought he would be a more dynamic, explosive runner. Maybe he thought he'd be more dynamic than he has been in the NFL. He certainly was dynamic at North Dakota State, but that's a whole different level of competition and athleticism. And I think maybe they thought that even though he didn't have many reps throwing, that he could sort of get by as a dual threat running back as he figured it out, sort of the way Justin Fields is in Chicago. But running got him injured. He ran into a lot of hits in his few appearances. And I don't think that's the quarterback he is. So if they misjudged that, they may have misjudged him entirely. But as long as he's on the roster and they've tied up all these first-round picks in him, they can't really make any large investments in any other quarterbacks. They have to sort of hedge their bets and give him a chance.
Yeah, no doubt. Also I heard today that Ray Rada was saying on 95.7 that Albert Breer said that he talked to people within the Niner organization and that they were kind of underwhelmed. And I don't know if that was the exact word, but that they were not overly impressed by Trey's speed nor his throwing. So, I don't know if that's throwing accuracy, if that's throwing arm strength, what that is.
I have a question.
Where's all the leaks coming from?
How does that epiphany come after you draft the guy, Larry?
I know. Well, I will say this. They drafted him, and there were some people in the league that didn't feel like they had enough information on him to even have Trey on their board. So he's a little bit of a man of mystery when you think about FCS level, the pandemic, how little he played, how little experience he has. They drafted the player, I think, Grant, based on traits and process. They felt like he had the traits and that they would take him through an ideal process and it would all work out. And I don't think it's as simple as that. And I think I think that they realize that at this point.
If they misjudge his speed and throwing mechanics, like that stuff you could judge in a pro day setting. His speed, you could time it. Now I know he didn't run, but If he didn't want to run, that's a red flag right there. If you can't, I know he had like a 21-mile-an-hour run, but that's build-up speed. What's his acceleration? What's his 10-yard split? You don't know. It's a pretty scary thing to trade three first-round picks and not have that information and find out after the fact that he was actually slower than you thought on film. That's scary. And then also with throwing mechanics, you should be able to judge that on film as well. So I think the thing with Lance, I think it was the same thing with Alex Smith. When Jed York signs off on these quarterbacks in the top 3, I think the Niners kind of, maybe not just quarterbacks, but anyone they take in the top 10, I think the who the guy is plays a big part. And Trey Lance is just so charming and polite and mature. And so is Alex Smith. And Aaron Rodgers really isn't. I don't know what the deal is with Justin Fields. He seems like a perfectly nice guy to me, but there were some rumblings about whatever with him coming out. Trey Lance is beyond reproach. Mike McGlinchey, beyond reproach. Solomon Thomas, beyond reproach. You know what I'm saying? I think the Niners might weigh that stuff a little too much with their top picks.
Well, I think it's a classic overreaction to what happened at their first draft with Reuben Foster. They invested a first-round pick on a bad guy and then had it all blow up in their face.
They thought he was a good guy, though. They talked themselves into him being like a tortured, misunderstood, good-hearted person. They really thought he was.
I don't think he was a great football player. Period. But as far as what I didn't investigate Reuben Foster in any way as far as his character, but obviously that blew up and he had some problems off the field. But I'm just saying that I think they. And not only not just that, the preceding regime, Ray McDonald, Alden Smith, some of the players that the 49ers brought into their organization prior to Lynch's arrival, I think may have turned off the franchise largely to anybody in that kind of gray area of, hey, there's some NFL securities checks in his file, but man, he can really play. Maybe in the past they took a chance and said, you know what, let's take a chance. We think we can play. Now, I think under Lynch, I think they're much more circumspect about taking on any kind of a character issue. And it's probably a good adjustment on their part. It probably is, right? I think character definitely matters. And I think it matters to them a lot if it's a face of the franchise, like Trey, like an Alex Smith. And I think it's interesting that you bring up Alex Smith because I think in a lot of ways, I think Trey's going to have a very similar pro career to Alex Smith. I think he's going to eventually get there, but it's not going to be, at all quick or direct ascension to the top. It's going to take time.
Yeah, it took Alex Smith a long time. He was very young. He hadn't thrown a lot of passes in college, more than Trey. But yeah, I think they have a lot in common. And I think the Niners, or maybe it's York or whatever, they're drawn to that type of person. And I really like Trey Lance. I really like Alex Smith. But you're not drafting people. You are drafting people, but you're drafting football players. And, Mike McGlinchey's a great guy, but he's not a great football player. And you took him top 10. And I feel like sometimes maybe it's Lynch or they can be seduced by a good speech or a good interview. Can't we all? But look, maybe Trey Lance ends up being a superstar. Maybe Trey Lance ends up being a superstar. But you saw him in the interview with.
I think it's going to take time, though. I just think
you saw him in the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just think it's gonna. I've never wavered. I think Trey's gonna make it. I think he's gonna be a well above average NFL quarterback, but it's going to take time, and it's not going. And the only reason I think he's gonna get there is because he does have these incredible traits, and football is important to him, and he is athletic enough, and he is smart enough, and he is, he'll be able to learn it enough, but it's a learned thing. And it's not going to happen overnight, clearly. And it may take multiple years from now.
Yeah. Going to be interesting. When the Niners took him, I liked him. And once they went up to number 3, I felt he was the right pick for them. But I always felt that he and the Niners were on different timelines. Kind of like, I'm not comparing him to James Wiseman because Wiseman might not be good at all. I have more, some football fans don't know who James Wiseman is. He was with the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors. But anyway, I have more faith. Similar, but it's like he needs time to play and develop, and the Niners can't really give him that. They can't. Another team could, though. If I were another team, I'd be looking at the Niners and Trey Lance and just waiting. You know, that's a guy I want. I feel like that's a guy who's been mishandled. It hasn't really been given a chance. I mean, Geno Smith said what they wrote me off, but I didn't write back. Dude, Trey Lance got written off after 4 games by a lot of people. I mean, I've never seen someone getting drafted so high and get written off so quickly. I hope, for his sake, that he can turn it around.
Yeah. Well, you know what he needs? He needs to play. He just needs to play. And the only thing I wonder, can he get efficient enough? Can he improve enough where he could play effective winning football for a 49er team that's, you know, tried to win really wants to win a Super Bowl 2 years ago. You know what I mean? I mean, they're really impatient to win. And so are they going to show that patience in Trey? Does he, I mean, he does have traits, but do we know he has higher upside than Brock Purdy, or do we just kind of suspect that he does? I don't know.
He has higher upside than Brock Purdy, but upside is not necessarily anything that people make real. You know, that's all theoretical. A lot of people don't. Yeah, potential means nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah, you could, but a lot of people don't realize their potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, Brock Purdy has gotten very close to realizing his.